Hi guys. So for this topic, we're talking about training model design, how to design. The chapter of this is optimum performance training. It's really how to make a kind of template of a workout for your client, team, yourself, whoever. Okay. So I apologize. This is a little bit of a longer PowerPoint than normal. So I meshed the sixth and seventh editions of the book together, just because I liked components of both, but not one versus the other. All right. So program design. So we were trying to come up with a design for your either client, yourself, your buddy, your athletic team, whoever it is. First, you want to go over a few questions. Either you asking them, some are pretty obvious, others are stuff you may have to think about. It's like what exercises are most appropriate for this client group of individuals, whatever it is. And that could be, are they doing more like sport specific or not? And then what exercises are contraindicated for my client? So contraindicated is what should they not do? What exercise should they not do? Okay. So obviously, if someone is 7 years old and they're trying just to stay in decent shape, do the normal everyday living kind of stuff, you're not going to have them do clean and jerks. Long story short, just more appropriate to their level, their age, their requirements, their goals, and so forth. All right, what exercise intensities are appropriate for my client? Okay, so same as the last one. Don't get too ahead of yourself. Don't push them beyond where they should be. Keep them kind of where they are, especially initially. You can start them off a little bit slower, and then kind of build them up, back up. How many exercises are appropriate for my client? That's good depending on their energy, their stamina. Diet could play a factor in this. Sleep, um, time, really, especially if they're going. And then what's their outcomes? It will help that. How many sets and repetitions should I have my client perform? That's going to be depending on their goal. I will talk about that here in a little bit on do you want higher reps, lower reps, higher sets, lower sets, and so forth. How many days per week should my client train? And that's going to depending on pretty much their time available. It'd be great if someone can do stuff 7 days a week, but that's not always going to apply in every scenario, in every situation. If you're working with an athletic team or someone that's competing athletically, you have to work around game schedules. So that can play a little bit of a factor. Like what days do you incorporate the heavy lifts and not? And then how much time do they have? Usually you want to space it out. You don't want to have them train Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and that's it throughout the week. You want them to usually spread out like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, or so forth, whatever it is. Variables, okay, repetitions, sets, training intensity, training volume, repetition tempo. We'll get to that here in a little bit. Intervals, exercise selection, exercise order. If they do have an order from like their MD or whoever it is to, all right, you need to lower their blood glucose levels or maintain their weight or whatever it is. Training duration, training frequency, a lot of different variables that could play account. Also, one that isn't playing here is equipment. Okay, that's another big variable. Okay, because that dictates a lot of different stuff that you can do. You can do a lot with just body weight. A lot of times, again, the more fun stuff is going to be where you incorporate different items. I'm not saying you have to have a big squat rack, power rack, but just having just like cones, for example, or some free weights, whatever it is. All right, repetitions. Okay, so one component or one complete movement of a particular exercise is considered like one rep. That may be basic for some and not for others. There's 3 different muscle actions that occur during that one rep. That's going to be the concentric, isometric, and eccentric. Okay, so the concentric is the shortening of that muscle. It's just like my bicep. Okay, that's the shortening. Instead of doing like a bicep curl. And then the isometric is me kind of holding it to the top part. Okay, where there's no motion happening, but it's still under stress. And then the eccentric is the lengthening of that muscle. Okay, so that like usually it's the lowering phase. Okay, and the eccentric is underplayed. The eccentric component is very, very important. And that's just more of controlling that weight. And usually it requires more muscle as a control because your muscle is actively failing. So the eccentric is very, very important for just muscle development, as well as some of the research shows that a really nice controlled eccentric motion during your workout can really help the development of your tendons, which is really hard to develop because your tendons just hold your muscles to your bones. That's what it does. But really helping prevent or treat like tendinitis is one big component of the eccentric movement or muscle action. Not people that just go up really quickly and they just let it fall, like bicep up and just fall. It's just really important to control it on the going down. Okay. So here I combine a few different things. So in repetitions, each training phase has specific goals. And so you'll see this model right here a lot in the books. And between the 6th and 7th edition, it changed a little bit, but not like a lot. So I kind of put it all over here, and every few slides is kind of give you a reminder so you can kind of helps you dictate. Because as I go through all the different chapters, it'll go through, all right, your strength phase 3, for example, muscular development. So that's just kind of what we're talking about. Okay. And help kind of dictate, I put definitions in some of these. But going for some like the reps, so this is like the ranges you should be depending on what you want to do. Okay. So for one, the muscular endurance. Okay. So performs in a less stable but controllable environment. Okay. So when you're training for muscular endurance, as you hear, your reps going to be 12 to 20 reps. Okay. And that is higher. Your weight's going to be pretty low. So keep that in mind. You're not going to going 85% of your max for 20 reps. That's near impossible. And if you could do 8% of your max 20 times, you need to reevaluate your max, is what that is. So this is really making sure that you have the endurance and stability in some of those muscles. And usually the muscles you're going to target are like your stabilizers for the most part, but all your real muscles in general, because you will work your stabilizers to a point, especially once your primary movers get exhausted. So this is really kind of important to get this kind of stabilization phase. And this one you can kind of change the stability of that exercise, but make sure that it's a controlled environment. So this could be just adding like a balance factor to it. This is like the biggest thing you can do. Making sure that they can still hold that balance when they do it. Okay. Make sure that they do have a little bit of a struggle because they do have to challenge themselves. But that is really, really important. Okay. Next one would be the hypertrophy. Okay, which is enlargement of that organ or tissue. In this case, we're really referring to enlargement of the skeletal muscle. Okay. So the rep range is going to be between 6 to 12. Okay. In that. Okay. And the hypertrophy is going to be more of the kind of muscular development in here. Okay. Phase 3. And then for the maximal strength, okay, this will be your heavy load. So this is going to be your ideal putting on muscle. Okay. The ideal people for this is going to be your strongmen and powerlifters. Okay. Because the rep range is 1 to 5 reps. Okay. Okay. So they're pretty much near maxing for the most part. And most people stay in this range, especially people that usually go to the gym. They don't really get into the power phase too much. But this is max strength. All right, how much weight can I move is really what it is. Okay, and so the reps are pretty low. Usually they don't do like 1 unless they're maxing. It's usually about 3 to 5. Okay, and last one's power. So power is the ability of the muscle to exert max force output in a minimal amount of time. Okay. So rep range about 1 to 10. And these will be these really, really quick exercises we'll get to a little bit later on for the power stuff. Like medicine ball pushes and like tosses and so forth. They're going to be your power exercises. Okay. All right, sets. So we just talked about reps. Okay, so sets is going to be dictate a lot on what you want to do in your endurance, really, for a lot of it. So fewer sets is going to be higher reps and lower intensity. Okay, so this is going to be your endurance and hypertrophy. Okay, so endurance and kind of building that kind of muscle bulk. Okay, and then the more sets you have, the lower repetitions, the higher the intensity. This is going to be your strength and power. Okay, so depending on what you want to do. So for the endurance and stability, okay, usually 1 to 3 sets. Okay, and then the hypertrophy, okay, 3 to 5. Then increase a little bit. So max strength is 4 to 6, and then power is 3 to 6. Okay. The training intensity. This is the level of effort compared to your max effort. Okay, it's usually compared to your 1 rep max, or whatever that is. So the hardest part about this is that one determining your 1 rep max. You can use like all like the charts you can see. It goes up to like 10 reps, whatever it is, to equal roughly your 1 rep max. And you use that roughly as a starting point, especially initially when you're trying to determine this. So let's say you're training to do the muscular endurance or stabilization. Okay, so it's usually about 50% of your 1 rep max. Okay, so if you're benching 100 pounds, okay, that's your max. Okay, and you're doing more of the endurance to stability. Okay, well, you're only going to be benching 50 pounds during this. Okay, 50 to 70 pounds, give or take. Okay, but I mean, going back to these other ones, okay, you have 1 to 3 sets, and you could be doing 20 reps for 50 pounds. Okay, so that's still pretty intensive. Okay, if you have someone that does not have their 1 rep max to base this off of, start them off easy, what they're comfortable with, and kind of build them up from there. Like, all right, let's keep putting on weight and let's see how many times you can rep out 10. Okay, 10 reps of this weight, whatever it is. And then you can use a chart, and these charts like in the back of the book, or you can Google ones online to kind of help you identify, all right, based on this, my 1 rep max should be roughly around 225. Cool. And then you can kind of base a lot of this off of that. Then over time, after you end of like whatever 4 or 6 week workout, you can kind of reevaluate the 1 rep max and like, all right, now this is where you're at now, so we're going to base all of your percentages off of this number. Okay. So for all these intensities, okay, the endurance and stabilization will be 50 to 70%. Your hypertrophy is going to be 75 to 85. Maximum strength to be 85 to 100. Okay, so this is where you're pushing like most of your body weight and higher. And then your power, if you see, actually drops down. It's about 30 to 45%. Okay, and this is just because you're moving that much weight very, very quickly in the shortest amount of time. So if you're like tossing a medicine ball, you obviously don't want a 100-pound medicine ball you're trying to toss, okay? Because you're trying to toss it as pretty much as far as possible for the most part. That's why a lot of those will drop down. Tempo, I mentioned this a little bit earlier. This is the speed in which every repetition is performed. And so you'll see a lot of these, you see like these 3X's or whatever it is. And so depending on what you're trying to do, remember it's going to be eccentric, isometric, and concentric in that order, usually how they're listed. Okay. So for example, the endurance and stabilization, okay, is 4-2-1. So it's usually in seconds. Okay, so 4 seconds eccentrically. So it's 4 seconds my muscle is elongating. Okay. And then I have 1 concentric contraction. So 1 second up, roughly 1 second up, and then I'm going to hold this for 2 seconds isometrically. Okay, and then repeat 4 seconds down, which is that slow eccentric. 1 second up, hold for 2 seconds, and then 4 seconds, and then I just keep repeating that process. And then for the hypertrophy, okay. It doesn't really focus too much on the isometric too much, just because the isometric is really important for the stability aspect. And hopefully you've already gone through all the endurance and stabilization already. And then for the the maximal strength and power is more just that more explosive force. That way, these numbers don't really apply. But they're really, really important for the stabilization and the hypertrophy. Rest interval, time takes to recuperate between sets or exercises, has a dramatic effect on the outcome of the training program. Primary energy used during the training depends on the training phase, intensity, and goal. Okay, so how much rest time are you going to allow yourself? So the muscular endurance and stabilization, okay, up to 90 seconds, right, a minute and a half. Hypertrophy, about a minute. Max strength adaptation, 3 to 5, and same with power, 3 to 5. So it increases from 3 to 5 because you want to build up all those ATP stores, okay? And so the more time you get, the better off it is. Obviously 5 minutes, that's a pretty long time, but if you're doing really, really, let's say it's your 100% of your 1 rep max, you may need that much time in between. About 3 minutes is pretty much enough, but depending on where you're at and strength-wise and so forth. If you're the ones, usually you can drop it down depending on what you're trying to do because you're not allowing your body to recuperate too much, but this also allows you to burn a little bit more energy. And also the rest intervals are really important if you're in a time crunch, because usually you don't want your workout to exceed really an hour-ish. But I mean, like, if you're taking 5 minutes in between every set, you're going to be there a while. Training volume. Okay, so volume is inversely related to intensity. Just because it's not safe if you keep it up there in that. So the training phase and goals indicate the volume. Okay. So if you have high volume, okay, you have low to moderate intensities. Whereas if you have a low volume, you usually have higher intensity. Okay. So you increase with the high volume and low to moderate intensities, you have increased muscle cross-section area, improved blood lipid profiling, and you increase your metabolic rate. Okay, so you burn more calories. Okay, with a low volume, high intensity, okay, you increase your rate of force production, increase motor unit recruitment. Okay, so you're moving more force because you need more muscle at this point, and you increase the motor unit synchronization. All right, training frequency. Okay, so number of training sessions conducted during a given period, usually about a week. Factors of training session per week per body part. So training goals, age, general health, capacity, nutrition, recoverability, lifestyle, and other stressors. Okay, really dictate a lot of these different things. Okay. Optimum training frequency is for improvements in strength is 3 to 5 times per week. At least 1 to 2 times per week is sufficient to maintain those changes, but not best. Okay, obviously the more is better. Don't get too ahead of yourself and go pretty much balls to the wall because you don't want to do this overtraining. You want to allow your body enough time to rest and recover because that is a really big part. Training duration. Framework for each from the start of the workout to the finish of the workout. Okay? Length of time, number of weeks spent in one phase or period of training. Okay, so training programs that exceed 60 to 90 minutes minus your warm-up and cool-downs. Rapidly declining energy levels, alterations in hormonal and immune system responses. So trying to exceed hour and a half. Okay, it's still a pretty lengthy time. And a lot of people won't do this just because of the time crunch. A lot of people live in the gym. I mean, I actually do 3-hour workouts, but I mean, at least the first hour of that is just cardio. But I was just nothing else to do, so I just work out. But now I'm so busy, kids and everything, so like 6-minute workouts, done, easy. But try not to go over that just because it's not good for your body. All right. So introduction to the program design. All right, so program design, an organizational structure of exercise incorporating volume and intensity to attain a specific fitness or performance goal. Involves many different components, okay? So they use the iceberg effect as a lot of this stuff that you do behind the scenes is not going to seem like your proper movement. Getting your functional movement down, make sure you have stability and mobility are really, really important parts, but that's going to take up a good amount of your work in order to increase your athletic performance and what everyone usually sees. Okay. So training plan, specific outline created by a professional, detailed in the form of training, length of time, future changes, and blah, 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 blah. All right. Periodization fundamentals. So periodization is the micromanagement or planning manipulation of training variables in an organizational fashion to improve performance over time. Okay, so divided usually in distinct periods. These are the annual plan, which is the macro cycle, the monthly plan, which is the mesocycle, and then the daily or weekly, usually weekly, is going to be your microcycles. Okay, so objective is training different forms of strength in each period or phase, we would call it, to control training volume and to prevent injury. So for a macro cycle, this one is more around like the sports conditioning or sports team. Okay, so the annual training plan or macro cycle shows how the training program will progress to a long term from month to month, usually meaning whatever goals. Okay, so for this sport one, okay, so you got January and November and December, which is their off-season training. Okay, and then their February and March, which is their preseason. And then the rest of it's going to be their in-season. So you got to dictate all this around the specific team. And each different transition or season or phase, whatever it is going to change a little bit. Okay. So, this is your macro cycle. Okay. This could be the mesocycle. Okay. So a monthly training plan, okay, 4 weeks, divided into a training plan for a specific monthly cycle. The monthly plan details the specific days of each workout and the style of training used. Okay, so this is again their mesocycle. Okay, so week 1. Okay, Mondays and Wednesdays are cardio, or just every week. Resistance is Tuesday, Thursdays. Okay, Fridays is going to be your speed, agility, quickness. Okay. At the end of the 4th week thing, you're going to reassess everything. Okay. So, for example, doing your all your maxes. Okay. This kind of help dictate. Well, this keeps an account because usually this one's football related or whatever it is. Their games are going to be Friday, Saturday. Okay. Probably Saturday in this case, but they're probably using the college plan. So Saturdays there's nothing. Fridays is just speed stuff. So it allows them 2 days of lifting and then 2 days of cardio and then all their speed work. So this also gives them time because they still have practice. But this is more around their practice plan. That way they're not overtraining. They're still improving, give them enough time to rest and recover. All right, sorry, coffee break. All right, so onto the microcycle. So this is your weekly plan. So weekly plan, microcycle is specific workouts for the week, usually over 7 days. For example, as we went off the mesocycle, Monday, Wednesdays are cardio. Tuesday, Thursdays are the resistance training. Fridays is the speed, agility, quickness, and then Saturday game, Sundays off. So they have nothing workout-wise on those days. Give them time to recover. So a little bit about linear stuff. So the traditional method of program design that aims to gradually increase the intensity of the training load while simultaneously decreasing the volume over a specific period. Okay, so remember, volume intensity usually are never linear. Okay, say over like time increase, the intensity is obviously going to go up. Okay, and then the volume is going to go down. One, this allows them to intensity to increase, which if it's like more sport specific, which usually the model is, or athletic related, you want them to peak usually towards the usually end of season. They can't just keep peaking. Okay, they can't just keep going up the entire time. They have to go down a little bit every so often to allow their muscles to kind of adapt appropriately. Otherwise, if you keep trying to increase them, they're going to crash and burn. Okay, they're going to burn out, or the muscles are going to fail, or you're going to get a lot of injuries, whatever it is. So you usually over time, let's say season-wise, you want their intensity to increase right before end of season. All right, so time frame, okay, 1 to 4 weeks, stability and muscular endurance. Okay, so off their 1 rep max, okay, light to moderate load, 60 to 70%. Okay, so that's the first month. Okay, second month, the hypertrophy and strength. So moderate to heavy loads, so 70 to 85% the 1 rep max. And then the third month, okay, so maximal strength, okay, so heavy to maximize loads. So 85 to 100% of all those. So run off of this, okay, stability, endurance, and then all those, going back to this. Okay, so that could be here's stability, endurance, and then your hypertrophy, and then we're doing maximal strength, and we're increasing up to probably around here. That way, their last month, you're not killing them, and that way their performance for like football, for example, because that's always the common example, they're usually in playoffs. Okay. And after that, they have off seasons, which you do a variety of different things. Ooh, I hit myself, sorry. All right. So a form of nonlinear periodization that changes the user's change in volume, intensity, and exercise selection to provide load differences on daily and weekly basis. This form of periodization is mentally beneficial because the workouts do not become stale or boring. Okay, for example, Monday is muscular endurance focused workouts, Wednesday is power focused workouts, and Friday is hypertrophy focused workouts. Okay. Given we're not using the same example that we use up here, for example. Keep that in mind. Okay. This is an undulated periodization. Okay. It's more just kind of changing things up. Okay. Again, here's the model that NASM uses a lot on their stability, strength, and power. Okay. All right, so a little bit more about the kind of like models and some of the charts. Okay, so in the stabilization phase, okay, this is phase 1, as they had here. We're going to have the primary adaptations of that is going to be mobility, flexibility, core and joint stabilization, postural alignment and control, muscular and aerobic endurance. Okay, primary methods, master basic movements, progress exercise proprioceptive, all that control, increase the complexities of exercises. Okay, really, really important. Okay, and kind of like the fundamentals. Okay, everything's about fundamentals usually. That is really about the fundamentals. Okay, and then into the strength component. Okay, so phase 2, strength endurance training. Okay, so have core. You see cores and everything. Okay, core is super important. Core strength and joint stability, muscular strength and prime mover strength. Sorry, muscular endurance and prime mover strength is your primary adaptations. Okay, so decrease rest periods, increase the volume of exercises, increase load and resistance, increase the complexity of the sessions and trainings. Okay, 3, the muscular development training. Okay, again, core and muscular strength and hypertrophy. Okay, increase the volume of exercises, increase the load, and again, increase the complexity of resistance training. And then on to the phase 4, the maximal strength. Okay, and this is just increasing load resistance training and increase the sets that you adapt. And last one's power. Okay, so again, core strength, maximal muscular strength, and rate of force production. Okay, so increase the loads, increase the speed, okay, repetition tempo of exercises, and increase the sets of each exercise. Okay, so components of the daily workout template. Okay, so you have the warm-up, okay, flexibility training and optional cardiorespiratory exercise. I actually don't like the whole optional. I think you should have some part of cardiorespiratory exercise. That's about 5 minutes or so. Usually I'll have, let's say, like my weightlifting class. I'll have them, all right, we're just going to do 3 laps around the parking lot. Okay, not a big parking lot, but that'll take about 5 minutes or so. It's just a little jog. Okay, usually at the end you're sweating, which is really what you want. And then you can do whatever else you want. I usually like to do more dynamic warm-up. But that's a little advanced, so people right off the bat. We'll keep it a little bit lighter for them. And then the next stage we're going to do some like core and balance exercises. Okay, and there's skill development, which is the more plyometric and speed, agility, and quickness exercises. Then you have your normal ideal resistance, weights, machine exercises, whatever it is. And then you have your cool down, okay, with some kind of light cardiorespiratory, okay, foam rolling, stretches, whatever it is. One thing I like to do is I'll do my core right before I do my cool down, because I want let me backtrack. Usually my first thing I do after my warm up is I'll do maybe some like speed stuff or plyometrics, and then I'll do my resistance training, because usually the first thing I'm going to do is be like my main lift. So let's say we're doing squats. Okay, so I want them to to focus more on their technique and form when they do like their squats properly, and I want their core to be fatigued by the time they get down to this. Okay, that's me when I'm doing a lot of the weight stuff. But it's nice when you put it early on the flip side, as you get the core out of the way early, because a lot of time after you do all your big movements or whatever it is, you don't want to do core. Okay, so I understand why it's up early. And if you're not doing anything really, really crazy technique-wise, it's probably good to get the core out of the way early. That way they don't skip it. So that's just primarily what I do specifically. But again, don't forget about the cool down. Very, very important. Cool down is probably just as important as the warm-up. And everyone skips it because they're usually exhausted. One easy way to do a cool down, if you go to the gym like GB3, wherever you're at, park far away. Okay? And just do a little light jog to your car once you leave the gym. That's it. Cool. Great cool down right there. And here is their template that they use. The one I have posted up here is very similar. You can edit this however you want. You can make your own. This can help you kind of dictate some of this. All right, stabilization level. Okay, so we break it down a little bit more in depth. Okay, so the stabilization, endurance, okay, teaches ideal movement patterns, increases the flexibility of each joint and the mobility, correcting identified muscle imbalances based on assessment results. Excuse me. So this is more. All this is just fundamentals. Okay, making sure your fundamentals are solid. Okay, because if they can't move properly because they don't have that good joint mobility with their ankles, okay, then they're not going to be able to do anything. Okay, so I understand why it's up early. it's hard for them to really progress up and do some of these max strength exercises later on, okay, because they lack the mobility to do it. Okay, so the phase 1 is really, really important, even though it's not as fun as like phase 4 or phase 5, but it's very, very important. Okay, create joint and core stability. Okay, core is very, very important. Okay, super, super important, especially early on, to where they can really just kind of engage it. Improving muscular endurance and aerobic capacity. Enhances proprioception, balance, and overall coordination. Okay, very, very important, especially the coordination part. Balance is key depending on the age population you're working with. If you're working with the geriatrics, the more older population, balance is going to be a big part. Okay, because they do end up falling more often. Okay, so really, really working on balance is really key. Proprioception is really important for anything. And that's just knowing where your body is kind of in space. Like I know both hands are kind of like behind my head. They're pointing towards each other. I don't have to look at it. You know, I do have the feedback for the camera, but I don't need to look at it. So if I'm catching a ball up here, okay, I don't need to look at my hand while it catches it. I just know it's there. Okay, so having good proprioception is very, very important for anything. Okay. And then promoting confidence and adhere to exercises. Okay, is really, really important for this phase. Time phase about 2 to 6 weeks. We'll be in this. Focus on acquiring basic exercise skills, proper use of equipment, free weights, and so forth. Training fundamental movement patterns, skate, squatting, hip hinge, pulling motions, pushing motions, pressing, multi-planar movements. A lot of this, okay, the first one, squatting, hip hinge. Okay, now we're talking lower body stuff primarily. Okay, which should be most of all your workouts should be lower body wise. Okay, don't bro out and just do upper body. Okay, but really important to really get all these like fundamental patterns down. That way they do them properly, and you don't have to re-teach them later on. Okay, so this is the barbell squat that I talk about. Okay, so musculature. Okay, so we're talking about like quads, glute complex, hamstrings, and calves. Primary joint actions is ankle, knee, and hip. Okay. Daily examples: okay, sit to stand, getting in and out of the car, climbing stairs. Very, very important exercises. Okay. You don't have to use a barbell for this, but you just teaching them the squat mechanics and how to do it properly. Very, very important. And the biggest thing is going to be stand to sit. Okay, how to sit down properly. Okay, and then stand back up again. Okay, once you get older, it's very, very hard. Okay, you may need help getting out. You may select different chairs that you can get out of easier, and so forth. So the squat is a very, very important aspect. Stabilization, endurance. Okay, some more of the training. Okay, for the squat, keeping the feet straight ahead, avoiding overpronation of the foot and ankle, keeping the knees over the second and third toes, making sure your knees don't dive into that knee valgus, ensuring the neutral pelvis and spine, equally flexing the ankles and hips, keeping the torso and shin angles parallel. Weight distribution should be good. Maintaining head and shoulders in a neutral position, very, very important for the squat. Okay. Hip hinge is an example of a kettlebell swing. Okay. Okay, we have hamstrings, glute complex, lower back, and abdominals. Okay, primary joint action is hip flexion and extension. Daily examples: bending over, put on pants, reaching down, grabbing a box off the floor, cleaning, gardening, so forth. Exercise examples: okay, RDLs or remaining deadlifts, back extensions, good mornings, kettlebell swings, as mentioned here, and Olympic weightlifting. Okay. A lot of the examples, as you'll see, are more related to the everyday living, which is really important because you want to make sure that they can, one, get around and do their normal everyday essentials. Okay, like putting on pants, squatting down, getting up. Before they get on to the more how much weight can they move. Okay, because again, we're still in the phase 1 kind of stuff. So those are very, very important, and depending on your population, they may need help putting on their pants. So this is a great exercise that helps them do that. All right, here's their pulling motion. Okay, so this is a TRX row. Okay, so muscles involved, upper body, we have your lats, teres major, rhomboids, trap or trapezius, biceps, and your posterior delts. Okay, so the concentric joint action. Okay, shoulders, you got your scapular retraction, shoulder extension, shoulder horizontal abduction, and then you got elbow flexion in your arms too. The examples: opening doors, climbing objects, raking leaves. So examples: pull-ups, chin-ups, lat pulls, rows, cobras. This is a really good posterior chain exercise. Everyone forgets about the posterior chain stuff, but it's super, super important. Training all the muscles along your back all the way down to like your heels is super, super important for just stabilization of everything. Everyone likes to train the front, okay? Chest, biceps, quads, which is not a bad thing, but you need to have all the posterior muscles on their back, your lats, your trapezius, your glutes, your arcus spinae. All those muscles are really, really important for stabilizing of everything. So all your posterior muscle groups, your posterior chain should be really emphasized in most of your workouts. Okay? For example, on your lats, back muscle, teres major, back muscle, rhomboids, back muscle, trap, back muscle, okay, posterior deltoids, back muscle. Your biceps is the only one that's an anterior muscle. All right, pushing. Okay, so musculature. Okay, so this is the bench press. Okay, pec major, anterior deltoid, triceps, brachii. Joint action. Okay, scapular protraction, shoulder flexion, horizontal adduction, and then elbow extension. The examples: pushing a grocery cart, pushing to open a door, whatever it is. Examples: push-ups, bench press, dumbbell bench press, closed grip bench press, closed grip push-ups, whatever it is, some kind of pushing motion. Okay, is all it is. So a little bit more fun for a lot of individuals, especially guys, to get that bench. It's just a good push exercise. Really important to have at least one push exercise per workout. Here's a press. Okay, so this is a seated machine shoulder press. Okay, so you got traps, trapezius, triceps, and rotator cuff. Okay, so you got shoulder flexion and elbow extension. And daily examples: lifting objects overhead, reaching for objects in high places. So examples: dumbbell shoulder press, barbell shoulder press, push press, Arnold press, whatever press it is. Really, really important to get those overhead presses in. These are definitely harder than all the other ones just because anything overhead requires more stability of everything. Core, shoulders, whatever it is. And so it's harder to push the same weight overhead as you would bench press forward. Okay. Keep in mind that if they do have shoulder issues, whatever it is, that they're pretty much clear to do some of these overhead motions. For example, if they're a chronic shoulder dislocator, they're going to be very unstable having the shoulders above, the arms above their head over here. This is a very unstable position for the shoulder. So you may not have the dumbbell shoulder press, but maybe a barbell. Okay, so you get one bar in each hand, bar in here. So you can go with both because now it's not really stabilizing on one's not free floating, it's kind of stabilizing on each other. So that can help it. Or maybe they have a lot of apprehension going above. All right, so maybe let's do incline. So instead of right above their head, they're leaning back, and there's more leaning back a little bit, still pressing up. That could be a little bit better for their shoulders. Okay. Until they're cleared to do the more overhead press activities. Multiplanar movements, okay, activities of daily living and sport activities occurring in all three planes of motion. Programming a variety of exercises for all planes of motion is a critical component of the client's training program to reduce likelihood of injury. It also increases the proprioceptive demand. Okay, it's whatever you want to do. So here's a stabilization design. Okay, so the warm up. Okay, it has the foam rolling, or they call it self-myofascial release. So sets 1 to 3, reps 1, tempo about 30-second holds. 1 to 3 body parts, or whenever you feel complete on that, on the foam rolling. Okay, they have static stretch, 1 to 3 sets, usually 1 rep, 30-second holds, depending on the body parts you want to do. Do as many in as you can. Optimal dynamic stretching and cardio. Okay, so you have 1 set, about 10 to 15 reps, tempo moderate to fast, 3 to 10 exercises, and then about 5 to 10 minutes of cardio. Okay. Activation through core. Okay, so 1 to 3 sets, reps, so you got 12 to 20, slow tempo, minute and a half rest, 1 to 4 exercises. Balance exercises, okay, sets you have 1 to 3, reps 1 to 3, slow tempo, minute and a half rest, and 1 to 4 exercises. Okay. And then we have your skill development. Okay, so your plyometrics. Okay, movements should initially involve small jumps, low amplitude, best learn the movement patterns. So 1 to 3 sets, 5 to 10 reps. Tempo 3 to 5 second holds, minute and a half rest, 1 to 3 exercises. Your speed, agility, quickness. Okay, all exercises should be performed with precise technique to minimize risk of injury. So it's just right off the bat, you may need to slow this down a little bit. You know, it's the first one, speed. Make sure they can do the exercise pretty much perfectly. Okay, slow it down and then speed it up as they get more comfortable with it. Okay, 1 to 3 sets. Reps is 1 to 3. Tempo moderate. Rest same, minute and a half. 4 to 6 exercises. Resistance training. Okay, strength training exercises performed in a controlled yet progressively stable environment. Okay, so 1 to 3 sets. Reps is 12 to 20. Okay, tempo slow. Rest about a minute and a half. Intensity 12 to 20. Then 1 to 3 exercises. And then you have your cool down. So again, I didn't really tell you any exercises in this, but this is roughly the template that you should go off of when designing it. And this is based on the phase 1. All right, the strength level. All right, so phase 2, okay, 2 to 4, increases the ability of your core muscles to stabilize your pelvis. Increases the load-bearing capacity of your muscles, tendon, ligaments, joints. Increases the volume of training. Increases the metabolic demand. Increases the recruitment and motor unit development. Okay, and for this one, we're talking about phase 2, 3, and 4. All right, so phase 2 to 6. Phase time is 2 to 6 weeks. Okay, for phase 2. Focus on a hybrid form of training that promotes increased stabilization, endurance, hypertrophy, and strength. Okay, so phase 1, phase 2, acute variables can be progressed by increasing the proprioceptive demand, volume, intensity, and decreased rest periods. Phase 3, which would be about 2 to 6 weeks. focuses on muscular hypertrophy, increased volume and intensity of the program. Phase can also be used for weight loss and cardiorespiratory training. Acute variables can be manipulated to increase stress on aerobic and anaerobic energy systems. And last one, phase 4, another 2 to 6 weeks. Focus on increasing the load placed on the tissues of the body. Exercise lifts progressively heavier loads and a more maximal intensity. Maximal intensity improves recruitment of more motor unit and rate force production. All right. Phase 2 through 4. Okay, here is your kind of template. Okay, so you'll warm up. Okay, you have your self-myofascial release. Okay, your active stretch. I'm not going to go all these in depth. And then your optional dynamic stretch and cardio. Okay, I would really emphasize the kind of more dynamic stretch. Okay, for everything really. Goes in. Okay, activation. Okay, your core. Okay, dynamic, eccentric, and concentric movements of the spine through a full range of motion. Okay, 2 to 4 sets, 8 to 10 reps, moderate tempo, minute rest, 1 to 4 exercises. Get good balance training, balance exercises, 2 to 4 sets, 8 to 12 reps, good tempo, same minute rest, 1 to 4 exercises. Plyometrics, jumps with more amplitude and dynamic motion. Same thing, let's go over that. Speed, agility, quickness. All exercises should be performed with precise technique to minimize risk of injury. Hopefully by this point, given we're at phase 2 to 4, they can do all the exercises pretty comfortably. You don't have to focus on technique as much. Phase 2 training, exercise performed in a controlled, progressively unstable environments. Okay, so you can do supersets. Okay, sets 2 to 4, reps 8 to 12, moderate to slow in tempo, rest about a minute, intensity 8 to 12, rep max, 1 to 2 supersets in between. Okay, so strength focus exercises. Okay, and they also have stability focus exercises here. Okay, so if we're doing more strength focused or stability focused, anyway, same thing. Okay, bench press, strength focused, and then the stability focus is the push-up, because now you can add different components to the push-up to make it more stability focused. For example, push-ups on a Bosu ball, which is like that half moon ball, or under like a Dynadisc or whatever it is, just to increase the different stability aspects. Machine chest press for single leg cable press. Okay. Lat pull downs versus standing lat pulls, and list goes on. Okay, like RDLs, okay, remaining deadlifts. Okay, strength based over here. Or you do single leg remaining deadlifts, which is more stability focused. All right, phase 3 and 4, resistance training. Okay, so increase the volume and intensity of muscular development. Okay, so 36 sets. Reps 6 to 12. Tempo moderate. Rest about a minute. Phase 4, increase intensity for maximal strength development. So then your sets are 4 to 6. Your reps are 1 to 3. Okay, and then you got your normal cool down. All right, on power. All right, so getting to level 3 power, or the phase 5. So this form of training uses the adaptation to stabilization and strength acquired from the previous phases, and applies it to most realistic speeds and forces. Usually this is more tailored to more of the sport-specific activities, which is usually the most fun because it usually mimics what they're going to do. So power is defined by force multiplied by velocity. Okay, so any increase in either force or velocity will produce an increase in the power. Okay, so the kind of template for the power. Okay, one, the warm up. There's the dynamic stretching. not going to cover all that. And then there's the core and the basic balance. Okay, so I'm not going to touch on those again for like the 5th time. Plyometrics, so the resistance, okay, down to that. Okay, so 3 to 5 sets, 1 to 5 reps, 8 to 10 power, 1 to 5 strength, 8 to 10 power, and this is all explosive motions. Rest is 1 to 2 minutes. Intensity, 1 to 5 rep max. For strength, 8 to 10 rep max for power. 1 to 2 supersets for each body part. And then your normal cooldown. Okay. So applying it, so now we get to the more of, here's a macro cycle for like body fat reduction. Okay. So this is not really tailored to a sport, but more like a more individual or class or group, whatever you want to do. Okay. So the macro cycle, so here's like the year plan for this person. So there's all different phases. So cardio is going to be in every phase. Okay. So January is more stability. February, now we're getting to the strength. So we have phase 2, March, phase 3. And then April, we're going right back up to stabilization. Okay. And then it's repeating for the first 6 months. And then after that, we're going to do phase 1, 2, and 3 for the rest. Okay. Remember, all this design is to do a fat reduction. Okay. The monthly plan. Okay. As you can see here, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, phase 1, and cardio on those days. This is usually just a Monday, Wednesday, Friday plan for like the general population. Okay. Now we're into the increasing lean body mass. Okay. So there's a macro cycle. Okay, so phase 1 in January. Okay, cardio's in all of them. Okay, we're all the way through except for this time we're adding in phase 4. But we're in the fat reduction, we never really got the phase 4. Going back up to this. Okay, the lean body mass, okay, we're down in phase 4. Okay, and then we don't really jump back up to phase 1 ever again. But it's a good place to start with that 1 month. There's, you just get all those stabilization exercises. And then we don't really have to go back to that. Okay, then after about 6 weeks or so, we kind of stay in this general area. Okay, we don't really get down to phase 4 anymore. Okay, and then the monthly plan. Okay, so this is a 4-day week workout. Okay, so the mesocycle is Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Okay, we'll cardio in phase 1. Okay, this is for the first 4 weeks. Okay, and then this one's January, so now we're in February. Okay, now we're in the same thing, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Now we're on phase 2, and then with cardio. And then here's March. We're in phase 3. And then April, okay, we're in phase 4. And that's so forth. Okay, and that's increasing lean body mass. Okay, general sport performance. Okay, here's the macro cycle. Okay, so January, okay, phase 1. March, we're in phase 2, all of cardio components. And then for the rest of the year, we're in phase 1 and 2, and then power. Okay, so I didn't even touch on 3 and 4. Because for most part, most of these, these are just athletes. So they're going to be usually in a sport. So they have their normal everyday lifting, or everyday practice schedule. So then we're going to work on just the power, because usually the power are going to be usually the quicker workouts. You don't need like a huge number of exercises, and that way you're not getting a lot of burnout. I mean, again, this is very, very general. You get more specific depending on the sports, their in season, out of season, how long the season is, and so forth. Because that varies a lot. Because like baseball is pretty much almost a year-round sport. Okay, they don't really get a ton of like off time. Here's a mesocycle. Okay, so Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Okay, phase 1, and then cardio. Given this is January, and then this is the same like we saw before. Okay, February. Okay, we're in phase 2. Same with cardio. March, we go between phase 2 on Mondays. On Wednesdays we're in phase 1, and then Fridays we're in power. And we just keep repeating that. All right. Sorry, this is a very long lecture for me. It's a good hour one. So we covered all the 3 levels and the different 5 subphases. A little bit of evidence, models. One thing I do want to incorporate or encourage is if you do start doing all of these micro, meso, and macro cycles, to spend a lot of time practicing it. Like read up, and because there's a ton of different what's the word I'm looking for? Ways to accomplish it. A lot of people spend a lot of time designing these very detailed Excel sheets, very tailored to every single athlete and to a completely different level than what you believe, to where it automatically calculates their 1 rep max, what exercises we do this day and that day. They're very detailed per individual. And they get serious detail. This is just very kind of generic intro to what you do, but a lot of people will spend a few hours, especially a lot of these strength and conditioning coaches, to really design a proper plan for all these athletes for their macro cycle. And then it tailors down to their meso and so forth. So some of this can be boring for some people, all the designing. Some people will really enjoy this part. But really, like try it out. Like plan one for you, for your brother, relative, friend, whatever it is. The more you do it, the better off you are. And I suggest, like, hey, you ever talk to like a strength and conditioning coach? Like, try and get their feedback on some of them, on some of the ones that they've done, because it's very tailored. Because like, what do you get this sport that you're used to, like Taekwondo? Like, what's their usual schedule that you're gonna have a strength and conditioning coach plan out for them and so forth. So that is it. So welcome to my TED Talk. Have a good one.